We would like to inform you that this event will be recorded and documented. The copy of the recording shall be used for documentation purposes and will be retained by HRD. HRD will not share the recording with any other individual or organization unless required by law. Only the HRD shall be permitted to access and download the recording. If you wish to request a copy, you may inform HRD in writing. Any unauthorized downloading shall be dealt in accordance with MC's Data Privacy Policy, Data Privacy Act, its IRR, related issuances, and laws of the Republic of the Philippines. Please be guided that your official attendance at this seminar will be taken from the list of those who have completed the evaluation form. The evaluation form QR codes may be seen near the exits and is also flashed here. Okay, may I request everyone to stand for a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you with gratitude in our hearts, thanking you for the opportunity to gather today in celebration of Cybersecurity Month. We are blessed to learn about the vital importance of safeguarding data privacy and implementing cybersecurity measures in our daily lives. We humbly ask for your guidance as we open our minds and hearts to the wisdom our esteemed speakers will share. Grant us the curiosity to explore, the clarity to understand, and the discernment to apply this knowledge in ways that promote safety and integrity in the digital world. Miriam of Nazareth, please remain standing for the Philippine National Anthem.
Tumayo po tayong lahat at sabay-sabay nating awitin ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-iliw, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dilim mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, guyot na ng mag-ibig, samang tulugin, di ka masisingil, sa lahat at tulog, sa sinuhan, sa lalim mong loob, magdinatang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng watawat mo'y talumpay na naglilingin, ang bituin at araw na kailan pa may dimating. Lumay ang araw ng 100 pagsipag, mo'y langis sa piling mo. Ang ligaya na pagpay makahamit, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
You may now take your seats. May I call on Ms. Maria Jasmine B. Velasco, Project Management and OIC for Director of Information and Technology Communications Office for her opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. As we celebrate Cybersecurity Month, we gather to face the very real and ever-present dangers hiding in the digital world. Today's theme, Oops, Nadali Ulit, reminds us that no matter how cautious we are, the growing sophistication of hackers can deceive us and lead to digital risks. However, it also challenges us to take action, encouraging us to stay vigilant in safeguarding ourselves against these online dangers. Through the commitment and collaboration of the Data Privacy Office, Human Resources Division, Information and Communications Technology Office, and Risk Management Office, We will continue to raise awareness on cybersecurity and emphasize the importance of data privacy. This important event is made possible by the vision of a leader who has been a driving force behind our commitment to fostering a secure and forward-thinking digital environment for MC. Please join me in welcoming our school president, Ambassador Lula Del Rosario.
Good morning, everybody. Those from the college, from the Skills Development Technical and Educational Training Center, the SDTech, and of course my colleagues in administration. I thank you for your presence here, and I welcome you to this part of the Miriam campus. When Jess asked me to give the opening remarks for this meeting, I really don't know how from what angle I should approach it, but maybe I thought I should approach it from where I am operating from. In the world where I came from, and I know it's a big world out there, and at the same time, at my age, I have gone through a lot. I always think in terms of infrastructure. Okay, when you ask other people what infrastructure means, to them it's roads and bridges and ports. In my case, I think of energy, telecommunications, water. These are also infrastructure. And because I always think in terms of security, we always think in terms of how do you guard your water system, how do you guard your electrical system. Can this be hacked? Can we be poisoned through our water system? Yes, we can. Can we be made all sick? Yes, we can, through the biological warfare, right? So these are all infrastructure. But there is an infrastructure that people are not always thinking of. It's the IT infrastructure. So just think of this. Just think of the infrastructure of IT. Just like our campus. I'm sure you don't know that at night we have roving guards. You might think that we only have guards waiting at our 6 gates. We have 6 gates, right? So at the end of the day, there are some guards who may be staying at gate 1, but there are those who would roam the campus every 2 hours in their motorbikes. There are guards who would enter buildings and inspect whether somebody is hiding out there in one of the classrooms or in one of the offices. That's why they know which office was left behind with an air conditioner on. They know which office was left behind with the lights on, and they know if somebody is out there doing overtime work and they're not supposed to be on campus. It's that strict. So if we are that strict on our physical infrastructure, we are also very strict about Miriam College being a safe space. To be a safe space means we don't allow bullying, we don't allow sexual harassment, we don't allow verbal abuse. It's supposed to be safe where everybody feels at home and we can speak out our minds without feeling threatened by what we do. I'm using this as an example just so you will understand what insecurity means when it comes to ICTO. If you notice, I am not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on anything on social media because I am that very careful about my own personal space. In my previous job, there was a year when I traveled to China 4 times a year. And each time I went to China, I would change my phone so that inside China, my phone would be different from what I would use outside China. It is a security, what we call against hacking, against monitoring, that we all practice for those of us who are doing foreign relations. All my colleagues, whether they're from Japan, Canada, United States, Colombia, Chile, Mexico, all of them, whenever we met, all of us knew we were using a different mobile phone. So I think it's in this spirit that we are trying to make you think in terms of security, in terms of protecting what you have, not only because of you as you, not only because of your individual data, your student data, your grades and your health information, but it's also for the physical health and financial health of the school. We are worried that we might be like the banks where people will hack us, and before we know it, our data, the data breach will really collapse our financial system. It can be that bad. Just as the government of the Philippines is worried about us being poisoned or being made ill by enemies through our water system, Miriam College is also that careful about us not being hacked, not being taken advantage of, and for you, our students, to really be very, 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 very 10 times careful about how you treat your data. And at the same time, I also want you to think of this, and it sometimes puzzles me a lot. Every time we take photos of our students, we always ask, is it okay to take your photo? Is it okay to show your photograph on our website? I'm sure you know we follow that rule. We have our LED billboard. You will see some students' faces being shown there. We have to ask them, will you allow your face to be shown publicly on our website, on our LED? So just as we are careful with you, we want you to be careful with your school, with how you treat our SDMS, with how you treat the whole infrastructure of IT and ICPO. So today we're very lucky that people will be here to talk about cybersecurity and about data privacy. And to all of you, I hope this will be the beginning of your very, very careful. I'm sorry, I'm always using very 1,000 times because maybe I'm that paranoid already against hackers and against identity theft. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant session.
Thank you, Ambassador Lula, for highlighting the importance of protecting our data. Today, we will hear from two very distinguished guest speakers who will give us more insights on data privacy and cybersecurity. Afterwards, we will be having a panel discussion. Then the floor will be open for a few questions from the audience. Our first speaker, Attorney Dane Chua, having significant legal experience, particularly concerning education policies, will be enlightening us further on data privacy. Attorney Dane Laris L. Chua is a senior associate lawyer from Estrada and Aquino Law. She graduated from Ateneo de Manila University with a degree in Bachelor Arts in History, minor in English Literature in 2015. She obtained her Juris Doctor at the De La Salle University College of Law in 2019 and was admitted to the Philippine Bar in 2020. She recently attended and completed the Philippine Trademark Conference 2024 held by IPO Phil, which concluded in July 2024. In addition, Attorney Chua also represents the firm as legal counsel or corporate secretary for several corporations and schools. She also appears before the Department of Education and House of Representatives for meetings and public hearings relating to policies on education, the youth, and sports. Everyone, kindly give Attorney Chua a warm round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, medyo lakasan naman natin para magising tayo today. Wala pa rin ako narinig eh. Okay, that sounds better. Okay. So when I first heard that I would be talking about data privacy today, the first thought that went into my head was, wala ba? Okay. The first thought that went into my head was, we are actually surrounded by data everywhere. Our whole lives, recently with the advent of several media platforms, the accessibility of business platforms and information technology, we data is everywhere for us. We inhabit we inhabit a physical and a digital space. And that becomes a problem because as much as we place images on the internet, we post our meals for lunch, the travels that we go to abroad or whether locally, we place a digital footprint on the internet that we can't really erase. And these are millions of bytes that if I talk about it, well, I can't really talk about it because I'm not an accountant. I don't really know the sheer volume of it, but it is a lot. And there is a need now to talk about protecting information privacy. It becomes imperative to talk about it because it goes directly into the very heart of a person's individuality, a sphere that is very exclusive and personal to us. So I keep talking about data, I keep talking about privacy. But what exactly is privacy? Okay. What is privacy? What is privacy? The right to privacy under our jurisprudence, as the Supreme Court defined it, is the right to be free from any unwarranted exploitation of one's person or from intrusion into one's private activities. Simply put, it's the right to privacy is the right to be let alone. But even simpler, the meaning of privacy, I can place it in this example. Who here has phones? Everyone has phones, right? Okay. In those phones, you probably have at least 3 or 4 or 5 social media platforms or applications. Do you guys have TikTok? Instagram? Twitter, now X? Messenger, you also have that. And in those social media platforms, you don't share the same information. There are different purposes, there are different audiences. Am I correct? Okay. That's what privacy actually is, in simpler terms. It's a determination for ourselves, the information that we limit. So for example, in those social media platforms, you define what you want to limit in Instagram. You also define what you want to share in Facebook. So that's what privacy is. And better to think about privacy are 4 areas or domains. So there are 4, on the slide, there are 4 areas of privacy. The first one is bodily privacy. The second is territorial privacy. The third is communication privacy. And the fourth is information privacy. So when we talk about bodily privacy, these are the ones na marinig nyo sa radyo. Ito yung actually marinig nyo din sa school. There are drug testings, there are genetic testings. Those that intrude into your body, your system, that's bodily privacy. And then there's territorial privacy. These refer to unwarranted searches, sometimes into your bags or even in your homes. Those refer to territorial privacy. Now, when we talk about communication privacy, this refers to the protection or the means of correspondence. So simply meaning ito yung mga monitoring of your emails, of your calls. So you also have privacy in that. Now, information privacy is what we will be talking about today. That's data privacy. So when I talked to you earlier about having social media platforms and determining what information you put inside there, that is information privacy or data privacy. Okay. Is there a right to privacy? under the Philippine setting, well, according to the Constitution, there is no express provision for privacy. It's created from several aspects of privacy that is corrected, or that is protected rather, that is protected by the Constitution. But when you look up the 1987 Constitution, there is no express statement that says the Philippines or the Constitution society protects privacy itself. Rather, it's embedded, as I said, in several provisions of the Constitution. One of which is the right of people under the Bill of Rights, particularly Article 3, Section 2, the right of people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures of whatever nature. And then we also have Article 3, Section 3, which is the privacy of communication and correspondence. So the first one, as I said earlier, that's bodily privacy. And the second one, as I was saying earlier also, is communication privacy. But there is no information privacy under our Constitution. But does that mean we don't have a right, a privacy right in itself? No, that doesn't mean so. Because we still have, as I said, it was inferred in other aspects of the Constitution. So it is still protected. So just to check if you have, if you understood what I talked about earlier, I'll give you a scenario. Okay, I'll just read it for you guys. Graduating students posted a TikTok video of them performing the choreography of Cat's Eye's Touch. Does any one of you know Cat's Eye? Yes, okay. Well, they posted the choreography of that song in their underwear. So the TikTok video or reel was shared in the graduating classes groups. The class advisor found the TikTok video and reported the students to the school's disciplinary office. Hence, the graduating students were disallowed to participate in the graduation march. Feeling wronged, the parents of the students went to the school saying that the TikTok video was privately posted and that the school violated the students' right to privacy. Let me know by a show of hands who thinks that the parents are right in their arguments. No one thinks. Okay, so several thinks that the students' right to privacy was violated. Okay, in the Supreme Court case of Vivares versus St. Teresa's College, it has a similar situation. In this case, the Supreme Court held that all personal data posted on social media is public by nature, unless the appropriate privacy settings or tools are used. So when we think about it, whether that's Facebook or TikTok, according to the Supreme Court, if you have anything posted under a friends-only setting, that's still public, unless the setting is under an only me setting, because only you can see it. They thought of it in this wise: if any post is under a friends-only setting, if any person adds you or gives you a friend request and you accept that, then they automatically see your post. So it's no longer just private. It's already public because other people can see it. So the answer is there is a right to privacy. However, in that situation, it was not violated, especially in this case, because the post was only on a friends-only setting. Now, if there were other privacy measures or tools that were used, such as placing the post under an only me setting, then the privacy would have been violated. Okay. So now let's talk about some key principles of data privacy. We have what we call personal data, and that encompasses personal information and sensitive information. So understanding what personal information is necessary to determine whether the law applies to you or not. So when we talk about personal data, it's very broad. As defined here, sorry, personal information is very broad. It, as defined here, it refers to any information, whether recorded in a material form or not, so from which the identity of an individual is apparent or can be reasonably and directly ascertained by the entity holding the information. So let's talk about that. What does any information refer to? It does not only pertain to any statement about a person, like what we would generally think of. It can actually also refer to your IP address, your location information, because these all pertain also to your identity. See, it says here, the identity, where an identity of the individual is apparent or can be reasonably and directly ascertained or known. These can also refer to houses and lots. So if your identity is tied to a particular object, a particular house and lot, then that also constitutes personal information that has to be protected. Okay, so let's move on to sensitive personal information. Okay, sensitive personal information, it's termed as sensitive because it has a greater impact to an individual or a person's individual privacy rights. So a higher protection is given to sensitive personal information. This can include your race, your marital status, your age, your color, your religion. Sorry for the grammatical error. It's religion, not religious. Philosophical or actually it's right. Philosophical or political affiliations, your health, your education, your sexual life, and also any information issued by the government agencies. By this, I'm referring to your SSS, your UMID, your postal IDs. Anything that includes your information, your age, your address, your numbers are considered as sensitive personal information that has to be protected. Okay, so you learned about the basic principles of data privacy. We need to know afterwards who are the characters in data privacy. As students, you are also characters in data privacy, and even employees. All of us actually are characters in data privacy. So when we talk about characters, we talk about the sources of data, which are the data subjects. Then we have the personal information controllers, and we have the personal information processor. Simply put, the data subjects are the sources of data. We get the information from them, whether that be personal information or sensitive personal information. Then the personal information controller is the one that collects and processes the information from the data subject. The personal information processor is the one that processes any data in place of the personal information controller. So this can be in the form of a third party or entity wherein the personal information controller has an agreement with to process data of the data subjects. So what's the difference between a PIC, a personal information controller, and a personal information processor? When we think about it, when we look at the definitions, they are both the same. They're both natural or juridical persons. But the difference is that for PIC, this is the main difference. For PIC, if the organization is the one that determines the why, and the how or the manner of processing the data, then that entity or person is considered as the PIC. Now, the PIP needs someone or an agreement or any document evidencing the processing of the data or the information. It's not the one that actually collects and processes the data. It only does so in place of the PIC. Now, again, scenario. Yay! Okay. Lisa and her classmates, Rosie, Jenny, Sana, and Mina went to a soiree with the Stray Kids, a group of boys from Lisa's neighboring school. I'm guessing for those that attended that are in high school, have experienced any soiree? Have any of you experienced a soiree? Do you guys know what a soiree is? No? Okay. A soiree is a meeting of, let's say, a group of people, students, usually all-girls school, and then they meet up with guys from an all-guys school to have a meet-up. Let's just put it simply, a meet-up. So, okay, going back. Lisa danced with Felix and they talked the entire time of the soiree. So enjoying Felix's company, Lisa gave her number to Felix. So, okay yung usapan nila. So, binigay niya yung number niya. Eventually, the soiree ended. That night, Bang Chan, from the Stray Kids, who also liked Lisa, asked for her number from Felix. And being such a good friend, Felix gave Lisa's number. So my question is Felix a PIC or a PIP? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone shout? PIC. Okay. PIC? Okay. Next. Did Felix commit any privacy violation when he shared Lisa's number? Yes? Okay. The answer is Felix is neither a PIC or a PIP. Remember, the definition of a PIC is one that processes or has the duty to process information or data. Felix does not have that duty, so he's not a PIC. He is also neither a PIP because he does not have any agreement with a PIC to process that data from Lisa. So he is neither. He's actually a data subject, but this is not relevant in that situation. Okay, moving to the next question. Did Felix commit any privacy violation when he shared Lisa's number? No, because it goes back to a PIC or a PI, if he is a PIC or a PIP. He didn't have any duty, so he didn't commit any violation. Maybe morally, ethically, if we think about it, or he violated friendship bro code, but not any privacy violation in this sense. Okay, another scenario. A testing center was engaged by the school to administer the final assessment of the graduating batch. The testing center does not deal directly with students. The results are released to the school directly. So take note of that. The results are released to the school directly. In order to gauge the difficulty of the exams, the testing center collects the results of the students and determines the percentage of the correct and the wrong answers. And the results are kept for a period of 3 years, then deleted after. Is the testing center a PIC or a PIP? Which one? PIP. C. Okay, sige. So, medyo half tayo ngayon. The correct answer is that the testing center is a PIP. Although I understand it's confusing kasi nga siya yung kumukuha at taga-administer ng final assessment of the graduating batch. But in this sense, all of the data that the testing center has is only on the... Mahaba pa eh. Sige, I'll go faster. Okay, the testing center just processes the information based on the data that's given by the PIC. So therefore, it is a PIP. Okay. In this case, here, yan siya. the tutorial center only collects information. It only does so based on the information that came from the school. So it's a PIP. Let's just skip some. There are certain principles that you have to understand. These are accountability, proportionability, and legitimate. Okay, let's just skip. Okay. Consent is very important when you process any data. It is very important and it should be evidenced by any written, electronic, or recorded means. So you might wonder why you're being asked to sign any forms whenever the school asks you to, if they could place your pictures online, or if they could get your information for any drug testing. That's because it's very important to get your consent because you have a right to actually not give your information because it is yours. You have that right under the right to privacy. Memes. Yes. Okay. Informed consent. We call it informed consent because the minors cannot readily or expressly give their consent. So it has to be the guardians who has to give this consent. But there are also instances when consent is not required. I'll just go through this quickly because I don't really have much time. Okay. The fulfillment of a contract, the legal obligations under DepEd, the medical emergency. So if you undergo any accident, consent is not really required. And security within the school premises, so this also includes CCTVs because it has to be reasonable and lawful. So if your face is shown in the CCTV and it's for the protection of the school, your consent is not required for that. Okay, let's just skip the scenario. Okay, can teachers force students to open their cameras in online classes? I'm sure everyone has online classes. According to the National Privacy Commission, whenever possible, the use of webcams or opening of webcams in online classes should only be optional. Now, it doesn't mean that the teachers cannot ask you or cannot require you to open your webcams during any online classes. It just means that this is optional, but if the school has a policy, and this is very important, if the school has a policy that requires the opening of webcams during online classes, then you have to follow school policy. Otherwise, that may be a sanctionable offense against you. Well, you guys are all students, so I'll just briefly just talk about this part because you do have a right to be informed of your rights as data subjects. So you have the right to be informed that your data is being processed. That's where the documents where your signature is required comes in. You also have the right to be furnished the information before any entry into the school's processing system. You have the right to reasonable access. So if you ask for your data, the school is legally bound to give you access to your data. The right to correct errors in your personal information, that's pretty self-explanatory. The right to suspend, withdraw, or order the blocking, removal, or destruction of any of your personal information. If you see that, if you believe or if there is proof that your personal information was falsely obtained, or if there are any errors or there are any other legal reasons or valid reasons for you to ask for its destruction or withdrawal from the system, then you can do so. And lastly is the right to be indemnified for damage. So if there are any inaccurate or incomplete, outdated, false, or unauthorized use of your personal information, you can also ask for damages. But this does not only pertain to students, this pertains to all persons and individuals that are data subjects. So essentially everyone. Wala na, diba? Okay. May 5 minutes pa. Sorry. Okay. What kind of security measures are required to protect our data? So we have 3. These are administrative, organizational, technical security, and physical security. So when we talk about administrative measures, these are policies in place by the school or any corporation or entity. When we talk about technical security, these also pertain to policies, but The difference is that administrative is how we implement them. Physical security is the methods and the controls that we use. So this pertain to using antivirus systems or any cybersecurity protection systems in place. That pertains to technical security, which the next speaker will be talking about on. Okay. Examples of data privacy risk are data breaches and poor access management. Everyone knows what data breaches are, so let's talk more on poor access management. This referred to if the school or the corporation does not have any systems in place, and sometimes it allows unauthorized third persons to access our data. So what happens is that since third persons can access it, there may be unauthorized disclosure or spilling of our personal data or information. But, okay, let's just skip AI. But human error is actually the weakest link in cybersecurity. It's the biggest risk. Yeah, an organization may have implemented the best data loss prevention software, but all it takes is just one ignorant, careless, or disgruntled employee to ruin the good work done to demonstrate compliance. So human error can actually manifest in certain ways, like this. Letters and emails can be sent to the wrong parents or the recipients. Personal data of students can be found at or left at the printer, especially when we photocopy certain things. We leave sometimes our IDs and then we forget about it and someone gets it. And then we have weak password configurations, student reports, or we send the email to the wrong address, the non-use of a BCC where it would have been appropriate, disclosure of a information to an absent parent, and data file with staff and student personal data accidentally placed in a shared drive. So these are these are caused by human error or accidents that may lead to data breaches, which is a risk to our personal data or information, especially in a school setting where students and employees have a repository of their personal data. Okay, so what the PIC do in this case, it is the school, because it processes personal data information, should create a series of internal training programs. So how do we fix human error? We fix it by training and making people more aware of data protection, data privacy. So we implement training programs for that. Okay. So what are the objectives of these security measures? I do apologize if I'm going really, really quickly. I apparently have only 2 minutes. So what are the objectives of these security measures? To maintain the availability, integrity, and confidentiality of personal data, to protect personal data against any accidental or unlawful destruction, alteration, and disclosure, and to protect personal data against human dangers. So these measures must all be reasonable and lawful. So it must be proportionate. So for example, if the PIC or the school or any corporation collects too much data that we don't necessarily need, that can also lead to human error, and that which will cause us risk. So there has to be proportionality to the data that we just collect. We don't need to unnecessarily collect data just because it's data. What are the other ways also, or the best practices that any corporation can do to address this risk to data privacy? One is first understanding our data. What is the kind of data that we are processing? Is it personal information, personal data, or is it sensitive personal information? Because from there, we can find out which measures or policies we can actually implement to protect such data. The second is, as I said earlier, provide continuous training and education on data awareness, data privacy, much like the school is doing right now. The third is encryption and secure disposal. Any corporation needs strong encryption. This pertains to having strong passwords and not weak passwords or any other encryption systems in place, especially if any of these systems come from a third party. The most important is policies of the school. These are really important because the school is bound only by the data privacies and especially the law. But what binds the school in their actions, their implementations in protecting data privacy especially is the privacy policies in place. It would be very difficult if there are no storage retentions, no policies on storage retentions, or no policies on disposal of confidential data, especially when it pertains to policies, if there is no policy in itself done by the school. Okay, that ends my talk.
Nakahinga ka pa ba, Attorney Dane? There's so much things to talk about data privacy, but at least Attorney Dane was able to cover the basic principles. So before I introduce the next speaker, we also want to acknowledge our online viewers from MC Nuvali and MC Loyola Heights watching our live stream on YouTube. Thank you for your virtual presence. So our next speaker, Mr. Edwin Dusohan, will be giving us more insights into cybersecurity, where he has years worth of professional experience in IT industry. Mr. Edwin Dusohan is a senior trainer and courseware developer at Trend Micro, certified in GCFA, CEH, CHFI, MCSE, and RHCSA. He authored courses such as Advanced Threat Defense 30X, Linux 10X Fundamentals, Linux 20X Threat Analysis, and Assembly Programming Fundamentals. As a trainer, he conducts cybersecurity fundamental sessions for Philippine universities and advanced cybersecurity courses for organizations like Interpol, JICA, Royal Thai Air Force, Philippine Army, DICT, and PAL. Additionally, he actively contributes as a challenge creator to Capture the Flag, CTF, events like CoreTech Threat Challenge, CoreTech Threat Challenge, Trend University CTF, and Trend Global CTF. Now that you have a better idea of who our next competent speaker is, I now turn the floor over to Mr. Dusohan. Everybody, please welcome Mr. Dusohan with a warm round of applause.
Hello, good morning. All right, good morning, everyone. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So our topic this morning is understanding IT security threats. Okay. So we're talking of cyber attack, malware, and so on. Okay. Now, before we proceed, let's first try to understand. Yeah. Okay. Why do we need to study this? Okay. Okay, by the way, this will be our coverage. So basically, there are so many cyber attacks out there, all right? So given the time, we'll focus only on these three things, okay? Phishing, malware, and advanced persistent threat. Has everyone heard of these three? Everyone familiar? Yes. Very good. Okay. Okay, first, let's answer the question why. By the way, we have a microphone. Anyone, feel free to go in front to participate. Okay. First, let's try to answer the question, why do you think schools are being targeted or can be subjected for cyber attack? Think of it like, why bank compared to schools? If you are a cyber attacker, why would you target schools over bank? Or why would you even consider targeting schools? Why not bank? What do schools have? Anyone who would like to answer? By the way, feel free to approach the middle. Just there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just an opinion. Okay? Just an idea. Why do you think schools can be targeted by cyber attack? You can compare it to bank. Yes, ma'am. Please go in front. State your name first.
You po. You.
You? Okay. Okay, you. Go.
Because students are more easier to get brainwashed po.
Very good. That's one. Let's give her a big hand. Okay, very good. Later in this discussion, you will understand the three fundamentals. Actually, not only in cybersecurity, but in many aspects. There are three. People, that's the first one. The second one is, what do you think is the second one? Okay, so we have people, there are actually three. Not only in cybersecurity, it applies to many things. One is people. Second is technology. The other one is process. Okay? And students belong to people. Okay? Very good. So that's one. And actually, there are many things. So for example, for banks, we know, what do you think is the target for bank? Money or financial gain. Okay? How about in schools? You can shout. Data, very good. What else? Information, very good. What else? What type of data? Personal data, school records, and so on. Okay. All right. And the question of why for the attacker, okay, these are actually in most, according to surveys, actually done by our good friend Checkpoint, another security vendor. One is first, students' records, okay? School contains many personal information, okay? As mentioned earlier, those are private information and in some cases confidential, okay? Which, as you know, in this digital era, okay, information is the currency, okay? Can all be converted. So there are high value data, okay, from schools. Another one is how difficult it is for the attacker. Okay? So considering that security may not be the focus, okay, of this, not only in the Philippines, but in general, compared to banks, okay, so it could be easily targeted. Okay? Another one is unprepared IT structure. Okay? Because in most cases, again, low budget later, not focused on securing network. And similar to others like the hospital industry, that's why these are also, and also they contain, they're also rich in personal records or personal data that can be targeted. Similar to schools. Okay, but then again, so that's why do we need to study this or why do we need to be aware? Okay? So what's the impact? If successful attack happens, okay, needless to say, okay, so most of us, even now, okay, I think we are live. So online learning is also an option now, especially after the pandemic. That's one, okay? Another one, financial impact, okay? So after a data breach, schools, okay, actually any company that has been affected may even have to face lawsuit, okay, especially if personal information has been compromised. That's one. Okay? And another one is long-term reputational damage. Okay? Who among here are proud of the course that you are taking? Raise your hand. All right, very good. Who among here are proud because you study in Miriam College? Raise your hand. Nice, very good. Oh, give yourself a big hand. Okay. Okay. So imagine if a cyber attack happens. So for example, if one student did something that may damage the reputation, it's just one student, isolated case. But, okay, for example, a cyber attack happened on an organization, which anyone can be targeted, it's an organization-wide, okay? So in the US, there are organizations by which if you think of the name, it would always come up or what comes to your mind is the cyber attack that happens next. Okay? And again, threat actors actually do not need, for example, even an employees, threat actors do not need to target all employees. If they have 1,000 employees or 1,000 students or even more, they don't have to target them all. They just need one to get in. Just so you know. Okay. So that's why after this, I hope you won't be that one individual who can give access, all right, or can be targeted because you have been cyber empowered. Okay. Now let's go to the topic. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, our target or our topic is threats. Okay. So the first threat that we will discuss is phishing. Okay. What comes to your mind when we say phishing? Very good. Okay? Namimingwit. What is being fished? Actually, it's taken from that. Data, very good. Okay? So the question is, how does it happen? Okay? That's the goal. They fish for information. Cyber attacker, usually this is the first stage. Okay? And it can come on different, approach. Okay? So we have email phishing, we have spear phishing, we have SMS phishing. Okay? So SMS phishing, as we know, all right, what device is being used for SMS phishing? Cell phone or text, through text messages. Okay? How about email phishing and spear phishing, guys? Has anyone heard of this? Especially spear phishing. Can anyone quickly differentiate? Anyone who can possibly differentiate? What's the difference between phishing and spear phishing? Spear, the one, phishing is like this, right? Spear is you'll throw something to catch the fish. How do you think it applies to technology or to a cyber attack? In terms of target. Anyone who would like to give it a try? What's the difference between phishing and spear phishing? Or just an idea? Spear. Anyone who would like to give it a try? Yes, ma'am. Nice try. Oh, let's give a big hand first. Let's encourage. Okay. Okay?
I think the spear phishing po is a targeted type of phishing po. Yung parang may na-target po talaga silang person na ma-attract po dun sa parang dun po sa parang bait po nila.
What's your name again, ma'am?
Rian po.
Rian give Rian a big hand. That's the exact answer. Okay? That's the term, targeted. Okay? That's spear phishing. And that's how threat actors work nowadays. Believe it or not, given the big names, every attack that you may heard, 90% of the time, meaning 9 out of 10, is victim of spear phishing. Okay? Meaning targeted. That's the other one is phishing. Anyone, all student, it will be sent to anyone. But when we say spear phishing, there is a specific target. Okay? When we say specific target, how do they personalize? First, they study their target, okay? And then look who could be targeted, okay? So again, phishing, usually, what happens is that once you receive, the goal is to get information and create a contextually relevant email that will let you click, okay, an attachment or link, okay? So why would I have to fight against the firewall security of an organization if I can get in by just convincing the user to click? Okay, so that's one. Okay, we have here some case studies. This one came from US. Okay, so both attacks happen on both students and the school employees, all right? Actually, one of the heads, okay? So for example, this one, attack on students, okay? Simply because, or how does it happen, or how do threat actors do that? Okay, in this case, the attacker made it, or the email that he created pertains to invoice. All right, so meaning if it looks like convincing, so for example, this is a receipt of your recent enrollment, maybe. Okay, so as long as he made it, okay, relevant, then the chances are you would click. So for example, if you receive an email telling you the agenda for this, okay, session, would you click or not? Or to confirm your attendance about this specific session, would you click or not? Or would you give the information or not? Okay. Hopefully, you would, you would study first the link. Okay. But usually, if you notice, if threat actors get a hold of those information that are supposedly internal, the higher the chance that they succeed. So meaning, anything that you share in public can be weaponized or can be used against you. Okay? Because the more personalized, the more believable it is. Okay? So that's how they do that. Same thing here. Okay? In this case, the target was one of the school administrators or the employees. Okay? So after that, this one contains a little technique through email as well. So instead of getting information, he pretended to be as someone. Okay? For example, somebody might call you or might email you or send you email telling you, pretending to be the higher person, okay, and then asking you to perform something. For example, bank transfer. All right? In this case, that is the case. We call it BEC. All right? Business email compromise. So take note of that. Usually the target are the higher ups, okay? The one who can perform like money transfer, okay? So though you think of it, it may be simple. They just need to pretend that like they are someone, okay? And then ask, for example, an employee to perform something, for example, change the grade or something like that. But how do they do that? Because they study the target. It's hard to succeed to impersonate someone if you do not know him or her. So what's the key? Anything that you share in public, again, can be weaponized. Okay, let's look at some phishing example. By the way, this is the most prevalent attack, phishing. Okay, so in this case, coming from LinkedIn, if you notice, it may be not that clear, but here's the case. So this one, okay, given compared to a valid email. So this one, if you look at the email, you can immediately see the domain. So for example, Microsoft.com, LinkedIn.com, okay? So usually, you may see something that underline. How do we call these guys again? Words or link that has underline requesting to link. We call it hyperlink, okay? So again, hyperlink leads to something, okay? But you can actually hover your mouse, like put your mouse near, then you can see the details, okay? In this case, we can see that it leads to LinkedIn. How about the other one, okay? So another one, we have a click here, not to subscribe, but it's asking you to message this or to click this email. But then again, if you check at the domain, that's another one. Anything, every time it has something like a URL, okay, you can hover your mouse to verify. So in this case, the domain or the sender is different. So for example, it claims that the message comes from LinkedIn, but the sender is different. So that's one. From email, we can check who is the sender. And if it has a link, we can verify by clicking the link itself or just viewing, okay? So clicking the link do not automatically, in most cases, for example, automatically download malware, okay? But there are compromised links that does, okay? In phishing, most of the time, it would lead to something that mimics a bank, okay, or a valid entity, okay? Convincing you to click or submit your personal information. So these are some ways by which we can check, okay? Now, if, for example, it tries to mimic a bank or any valid website, for example here, okay, This is the Facebook website. We can see there's a lock icon. Okay. If there is a lock icon, that means the certificate is valid. So meaning it says Facebook and the certificate is owned by Facebook. So we can even see here, if we click those lock icon, we can see if the certificate is valid. Now, what if the certificate is not valid? You can see something like this. Your connection is not private, something like that. And then ask you to back to safety or proceed. Okay. Now, if this is an internal site, meaning something that you know internally, for example, by your administrator, it's okay, right? But if this is public, meaning you are searching for something, okay, or come from email, so these are public website, not internal website, and then you see here not secure, or the icon is not locked, then better not click or do not click on proceed. Okay? That's one. Okay, how about this one? From PayPal, another thing about fake email. Okay? For example, here, the valid email would greet you by name. Okay? The senders usually knows you. The other one, the more generic ones, okay, would just give you or generic greetings, dear customer, something like that, without greeting you. Okay. Another one, in some cases, it may even ask you to regarding the message, and also it may even ask you to do something else or to dial numbers. Okay, strange ones. Okay. Now, regarding the content, for example, here, the message is usually straightforward. Okay. For example, for phishing email, usually it contains urgency. Okay. Usually there is, it's threatening. Okay. So usually using fear for you to click or act immediately. That's another one. Okay. Usually valid email or a typical organization would do that. So that's another clue. If there's an urgency, okay, that's unless it is really personal message and it is that urgent. But if not, okay, there's always a pretext like your account has been compromised. You have to click this now to verify. Okay. Another one, subject line that exactly state what the email is all about. Okay, that's another one. The subject. So, for example, this is a confirmation of your purchase. Okay, if it's something else. Okay, so for example, the typical ones being used are update your account or your account has been compromised. If those two are utilized or used, that should be a red flag. Okay, and then after telling you that your account has been compromised, asking you to resubmit your information. Do not just trust the bank or the website just because it has a logo similar to the original. Okay? Always verify the site, again, similar to what I've shown earlier. If the certificate is valid. Sometimes, for example, Citibank, they will change the letter I to letter L or number 1. So it still looks like Citibank. So for untrained eye, it may work. Okay? So always verify that. Sometimes W, they will change to double B, as in victory. Okay? So it looks normal. Okay? So I hope you will take note of that as well. Okay? This one, another one, again, a more personal. Okay? So in this case, for example, the valid email usually has professional greetings. The fish email usually will just like dear customer, okay, and no other references. Okay, sometimes they even contain gibberish. Okay. Okay, so again for phishing, all right. So some red flags. There are urgent, okay, urgent or threatening language is being used for you to act immediately. Okay, suspicious sender. Sometimes grammar is incorrect. Okay, and most importantly, it requests for personal information. After you click the link, it would ask for. It will display a valid or looks like a valid site asking for personal information. Okay? And the clue is that usually it contains malicious link most of the time, or sometimes an executable, okay, or a downloadable file, okay. So especially if it is an executable, okay, although they can use, again, Microsoft Word, those can all be utilized to install malware, but in most cases, executable. Okay, so every time that it asks you to click or download, that's where we have to be much more vigilant. Okay, next is ransomware. Right? So again, ransomware is the software that encrypts files. Okay? So usually, what's the characteristic of ransom? Ransom, after it encrypts files or lock the machine, it asks for what? Money. Through what form? How do they get money from you? Bitcoin or digital currency. Very good. Okay? Why do you think they use digital currency? For staying hidden or anonymity. Very good. Okay? Okay, so usually, again, similar to after, for example, you click on malicious email or spearfish email, usually the email contains malicious attachment or malicious link, okay, that contains download, okay. Another one, aside from getting your personal information, in some cases, okay, the what is being sent to you is ransomware, okay, and this is very difficult to deal with, okay. Everyone can be, you don't even have to be too secure. So for example, if your machine is connected to a device that is within the network and one machine got infected, okay, chances are, if sharing or network sharing is enabled, chances are your machine would also be infected, okay. So that's why you should also have some local security, like turning on your firewall, okay, or better not, or better yet, disconnect the work group, okay, some possible local network security. But in typical cases, ransomware may just compromise or jump by a network. Okay, so this is just an example by which this one actually targets universities. For example, the St. Peter College and 10 more. Same group. Okay, now if you would notice, nowadays, ransomware are actually much more advanced, okay? So after they get into the network, they do not just install the ransomware, then ask you for a payment. The trend nowadays that they will get the file or get some of your files, force you to pay. If you do not pay, they will ask you to, or they will threaten you that they will show your files or expose your files, okay? So if you notice, some of the techniques are even getting through the network, okay? So that's how they work nowadays, okay? And that technique by which threat actor is threatening to expose the file is called double extortion, okay? It can even go to triple, by which they include DDoS. The other one, quadruple, they email the heads, okay, forcing them to pay. But the most popular one is double extortion. Okay. So again, this technique, aside from encrypting your file, if you do not pay, I will threaten you to expose your data. So meaning I stole your data first. Okay. That's how they work nowadays. Okay. Now another threat is APT, or Advanced Persistent Threat. Okay. The difference here between a typical hacker, okay, and APT group is that the threat actor, okay, in the old days, threat actors' behavior or threat actors work in such a way that after they get in, they will install malware, they will damage the machine, and they'll tell them, hacker was here, okay? But nowadays, that's not the case. They can stay on the network for years, months, or even number of years without getting detected, okay? That's the goal, espionage, okay? So it starts with gathering intelligence about the target and then finding a way to get in, okay? Usually via email, so either email or web, okay? Or public website, but usually through email because they don't have to fight against the firewall if they can, okay, convince the employees or the user to click an attachment, okay? And then afterwards, they will connect, or once you click on the attachment, it will give control to a machine that is controlled by attacker. So that's how attackers remotely issue remote commands or control the machine. We call it CNC stage. And then afterwards, threat actor would roam, okay, hop between machines to find digital assets. We call it lateral movement. Okay, so the things that you have seen earlier, like the PowerShell command, PSExec techniques, those are lateral movement techniques. Okay, and then later they will start discovering assets. So, for example, in school, this may be intellectual properties, school projects, student records. Okay, and then ultimately data exfiltration. Okay, so for whatever purpose, they will exfiltrate the data, either ask you for something financial gain, or they will just do sabotage, or they will just spy. They are just spying on you. Okay, but the thing is, they can get to your network. All right, and again, how? Usually, 90% of the time, through email, through spearfish email, by sending you, okay, email that is contextually relevant. So that's why, if email asks you to click on something, all right, or download something, that's, you need to be very careful. Better submit to your administrator for checking, okay, because you could be targeted. Okay, another threat is DDoS, okay, distributed denial of service. I'm sure everyone is familiar with this. DDoS, are we good? Okay, so just in case you haven't heard of the term, so DDoS, or denial of service, is making a machine unusable or unable to respond to a valid request. Okay, so we call it distributed. The difference is that when we say DOS, it's just one machine. If it is more than one or two or more, in reality it could be thousands of machines attacking you. We call it distributed denial of service. Okay, so for example, some groups might target a certain school. For example, the website, they want to take it down. So they may send too many packets, all right, to the by which the website or the can no longer be usable or respond to a valid request. Okay, so that's one of the techniques. So that's one of the threat in education. So in that, you have to have a firewall that can filter those. Okay, now let's go for cyber defense. So after learning all those threats, okay, take note of these terminologies. If by chance in the future, or even if not, you consider cybersecurity, I hope you remember the terms. Okay. Again, the building blocks of cybersecurity is people, process, and technology. Okay. So for example, if your people is not trained, it may not be, you could be easily targeted. Okay, that's why awareness is important. So think of it, for example, in the school, you're a varsity, still the same building blocks. Who are the people to be sent? Okay, what's the process? How do they train? Do they have the materials or the tools for training? So that's how, schools can compete against each other. The better this trio has, or these building blocks, then the better you perform. Okay, same in cybersecurity. Okay, if you don't have technology, for example, to deal with threats, so think of it like a doctor trying to identify if this patient has an asthma or a lung problem without X-ray, something like that. Okay, so same thing with process. What do we do if threat happens or there's a malware outbreak? Okay, usually we depend on the technology that we have. Okay. Another one is CIA triad. Okay, another important. Again, CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay, so CIA. So again, confidential. We want everything that we do in cyber is to protect this. So again, confidentiality, as mentioned earlier. Okay, we only want to share files to those who have access. So the principles of least privilege. So we only allow access to those who needs it, not because they want it. Okay, integrity. We want to maintain the natural state of the file throughout its life cycle. And availability. So we want it to be available when needed. So think of it in a bank. All right, so you want your money to be the same amount all the time. The ATM machine is available, and your record is not exposed. Okay, so these are important stuff. Okay, and lastly, some best security practice. So again, as mentioned, for email, we try to be vigilant, be familiar with phishing. So in that case, we do not just click on anything. Okay, every time that it asks us to click, we have to be vigilant. Okay, 3-to-1 rule. So just in case your backup locally, backup within the machine, and backup online. Just in case something happens, we have available ones. And apply security latest patch, classify your data. Defense in depth, this is where your technology comes in. Okay, so for example, you have firewall, you have local antivirus, and then if for ransomware, by chance you already got infected, there's actually an organization called No More Ransomware. There are so many free tools by which they can, you can try to download before even trying to consider paying. Okay. All right. Actually, that's all for my presentation. Now, before I finish my discussion, okay, I have some freebies here. If who can answer first, who can answer all the threats, the 4 threats that I discussed this morning? Anyone who can remember the 4 threats, or at least 3? Please use the microphone. So what's the first threat that I discussed? So again, this is the threat for education. Anyone? Yeah, don't be shy. Come on, please go. Or at least 2 will do. Just 2 threats that I discussed earlier. Okay. Okay, let's give them a big hand first. All right. Thank you. What's your name, ma'am? What's your name po?
Princess po.
Okay, Princess, go. And
The first is phishing and email phishing.
okay, second, very good.
And third is SMS phishing, and the fourth is ano ulit yun? Spear phishing.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Since there are 2 of you, okay, I will give 2. Okay. Last, who can give me the meaning of CIA? CIA triad. Please use the microphone. With short description, by the way.
CIA means confidentiality, integrity, availability.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. You may have this. And again, guys, that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Erwin. So after hearing your presentation, I appreciate more the security measures our ICTO has implemented to protect our data. So, okay. Sir, remain on stage for our next segment. We may now invite Attorney Dane to join us on stage. Aside from our esteemed speakers, we also invited members of the MC community to participate in this discussion. Joining us today, we first have Mr. Mon Basero, our e-learning coordinator at the LEAD Center. Next is Ms. Dina Valera, our BEU registrar and admissions officer. From our student body, we have Ms. Aiba Lili and Ms. Alisa Navajas. Moderating our discussion is Dr. Noel Racho, our HR Director. Let's give a warm welcome to our panelists and moderator as they lead us through a dynamic and insightful conversation.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's do a quick conversation. This is just to deepen the topic this morning from our two esteemed speakers. Perhaps I'll start, but this is how it will go. We'll ask the discussants to ask questions but give their insights, and then our two speakers would probably respond. I'd probably ask our two students, based on what you've heard, your insights on cybersecurity and data privacy. Sorry but because we need to manage our conversation, I will have to cut you at some point if it's necessary. Don't be offended because life is short. All right. So let's have you.
Hello, good morning everyone. I'm Alyssa Navajas, second year BA International Studies student. I major in International Politics and Peace Studies. And first of all, I would like to thank and commend both of the speakers, Ms. Attorney Dane and Mr. Irwin. Both of your talk has been really eye-opening and has made me more aware, especially that we are digital natives now. Knowing all of these is very important for us. And I say this because this happens to a lot of students actually, including me. I actually experienced getting my Instagram account hacked. Yeah, so because I clicked on a link that was sent to me by a friend whose account was already compromised unbeknownst to me. So it made me wonder, are there any advanced technologies or AI systems that can warn us when an account has been hacked or taken over by someone else? And from a legal standpoint are there any kinds of protections, or should tech companies be required to provide these kinds of protection? Because if we don't find a way to stop these kinds of breaches, the cycle will continue, and then more people will fall victim to this kind of threats. So what are the legal protection, or are there any technologies that needs to be in place for this kind of protection for the common people?
No. Okay. First, to answer the question regarding the technology side. So the case here was that how do we avoid being hacked? For example, our social media account, how to identify if it's already been hacked. Okay. So as we all know, once the attack has been, or once the account has been compromised, there have been telltale signs. Usually, they would start acting or messaging others, usually seeking financial, seeking information, asking for unusual that the original person do not. Okay. Now the question is, there a technology that can prevent that? The answer is no. Why? I hope we can only hope there is actually, an antivirus for human, but there's none. So how do you think we can prevent that? For human, how do we deal? Awareness, training. Okay. Now the technical side you can. So for example, how do I get, or how do I reset your password? What is being asked? Usually your phone number, right? And other information, middle name. So if that one is available, so that one. So you gave it an access. Most importantly is the phone number. Okay. Usually, if it's how do we call that message that is being sent after you, for example, perform request for password change? How do we call those? What does OTP stands for? One-time password, and it can only be sent to a phone number, okay, to the physical phone where the SIM card is So the other one, the techniques, so whoever holds that, that's another one. Okay? If it is held by this person, yeah, that's one. Now, if another one, being familiar with other techniques, okay? For example, you are connecting to public Wi-Fi, okay? It may be free, okay? But then again, what stops them from recording? Okay? Your keyboard strokes, okay? And your other transaction, okay? Another one, if you're connecting to, for example, to a computer shop, okay? What stops them from installing a keylogger, all right? Now, if by chance it's already been compromised, take note, we can always report to a local law enforcement. It's not that difficult or complicated. I also deliver training to Interpol and to NBI, to PNP, to Philippine Army. These are all friendly people. We should know if it's time to seek the law enforcement assistance.
Thank you, sir. You know what he said resonates what Attorney Cruz earlier said, no? That the weakest link in the issue of cybersecurity and data privacy is us, human error, no? But and of course the intervention is raising awareness and continuous training. But from the legal perspective, Attorney, how will you respond to her question?
As said earlier, well, when there are already attacks like this, it's not really an issue of data privacy now per se, but it now becomes an issue of cybercrime. So what would apply would be the Cybercrime Prevention Act. But then that's also very difficult because when we talk about any criminal actions in this case, it has to fit the elements of cybercrime. So if it is simply just getting, if someone hacks in your, let's say, your Instagram account, but then no other damage was taken from it, your money was not taken, your data was just taken, then that might also not fall under cybercrime. But we do hope eventually in the future that we do have legislations against this because it is pretty prevalent. It's just that it just has to fall under cybercrime. That does not prevent, though, anyone from filing any complaint for damages. So that's also a another action that one can take regarding this.
Thank you, Attorney. That's a good perspective. Just looking at, is it a simple case of violating our privacy, and does it now go to that level of cybercrime? So mag-ingat tayo. Let's listen to let's pass on the mic.
Thank you so much. So I'm Raisha Balili as well. I'm with a similar program with ISA. So first of all, of course, I would want to express my thank you to our both of speakers because I really appreciate how the organizers has made it or has provided us two different perspectives, from an information technology expert with someone from the legal field. So I actually just have one questions for each and maybe a follow-up then, but I'm just gonna put it in here as well. So for Sir Erwin, as students, I'm pretty sure some, if not most of us can relate to this. We love to explore the service of cyberspace and would sometimes resort to illegal or unauthorized websites to watch movies or access free online games. So my question is, how do we protect our accounts or devices even from being infiltrated by any hackers or viruses? And does incognito po actually works if we use it? And for Attorney Dane po, I'll just ask na lang din. For earlier in your scenario analysis, two scenarios, it made me wonder if what's your take with bearing or putting your school's name attached to your profile or TikTok post or any social media post for that matter. And would you suggest, in a legal perspective, that you bear legal responsibility when you're attaching your institutional affiliation to your social media accounts? And with your scenario too po, when Lisa, it made me so curious what's the aftermath of it. Like if Lisa gave Felix her number, and without Lisa's consent, Felix gave it to a third party. If consent is very important, as you've emphasized earlier, why is that there is no legal implication to Felix's action po? So, ayan po. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you want to talk about Felix first? Okay, let's talk about Felix first. I did mention earlier that consent is very important when it comes to privacy, when it comes to securing or processing anyone's personal or data or information. But in the scenario that I mentioned earlier, this all talks about the Data Privacy Act, right? So under the Data Privacy Act, data subjects don't really have the obligation to process certain things. And in that scenario, Felix is a data subject. He is entitled to his personal data, as is Lisa. Although I do understand that he did give his Lisa's number to someone else, to a third party, he neither has that obligation to protect the information of Lisa. So if he does give it to someone else, although Lisa might not like that, he does not have the obligation not to share it or to protect it or keep it in his custody. So he can do what he likes with it. As opposed to if he is someone that processes or collects the information due to a duty or an obligation, then he has to secure Lisa's consent for that data that he just disclosed. So yeah. What were the other questions? Scenario 1.
For the scenario 1 po, like us students kasi, when we do our social media postings, sometimes we forget that we tag Miriam College, for instance, or other institutional affiliations with our name. So I asked, like your scenario 1 earlier with the graduate students posting their social media with sensitive contents, and they accidentally maybe put their institution's name in there. Do we have any legal accountability? I think this works for government officers as well. Or?
Yes, also. Right now it's very prevalent, like media, technology, social media in particular. Generally, I would advise that any institution or any company or any school have a policy on social media responsibility. So so the students and the employees are also very aware, because what we put out on social media and how people perceive us by what we post also affects us. And in that situation, if the students do post, especially people from students from Miriam College, if any one of you posts anything that bears any resemblance to Miriam or even identifies that you are a student from Miriam, it directly affects the reputation also of the school. So you have to also be very socially responsible for your actions and what you put out, because it is a digital footprint that we can't really readily erase.
Thank you so much po.
Okay, regarding the question of on the technical side, so for example, first the question of piracy. So for now, let's forget, we know that it's illegal, okay, but you know, it's in the internet, everyone can access. So for example, pirated application, okay, pornography, malicious websites, they can freely access. So the question is, your question, can incognito work? Is that the question? It may work. The question is it enough? Okay. First, let's try to understand what it does. So for example, incognito, it allows you to not record your activities. Okay. So for example, I go to a shopping cart, I put my credentials. It's not recorded. Okay. So that's all. But for example, there are sites that do not require credentials. Okay, so for example, those, especially malicious sites by which either pornography or piracy are being hosted. Okay, so the question is, while they are free, what do hackers get? What do bad guys get? As we all know, almost nothing is free now. Okay, so in terms of technical, what can possibly happen? All right, first, those free software that you do, there are what we call grayware, by which in most cases, they are bundled with other applications. So meaning, I only install these free tools, but then again, in the background, something is being installed. Okay? Or in some cases, additional, even anti-software or or security tools in some cases, they call it, bundled with it. And sometimes you may easily just click next. Sometimes it's pre-check, so you did not notice something is being installed, which can be used to later monitor your system. In some cases, now for pornography site, while the content is free, morally it is illegal, it's immoral, yes, but in some cases, or in some countries, it is a valid business. Okay, so it's as you. So in some countries, it may not be blocked immediately because it's valid for some, for others. Now, the question is, how do you ensure, for example, those who are free or other similar, okay, that nothing can be easily or automatically installed. Sometimes we don't have to download, just simply visiting the site, especially those that are too enticing, contains something malicious that would automatically install in your system. Sometimes they installed by a BHO or browser hijack object, installed by a browser, meaning they would later install something on your machine. Sometimes it can be used to mime or to dig some digital currency, okay? And then in some cases, monitoring your keyboard stroke, okay? In some cases, just install something that you do not need or that you do not have permission. So the idea here is that we may not always monitor who would use our computer, and sometimes we may do something, okay? So the main idea is that we do not just rely on what is available. Sometimes we need to seek additional security. So for example, endpoint security. So just in case, you accidentally click on something, for example, you have protection on your browser, you have protection on your machine. So just in case you click, or sometimes kids uses, or for example, you don't want for your kids to visit some malicious site, you can put parental controls. Okay, so there are many layers of defenses. Now, for example, of course, we cannot allow for example, our Facebook account, our Instagram account suddenly get hacked. Now, the question is, how do we ensure that we're not hacked? Okay, keep changing your password. As long as you can change it, that's a clue. You still own it. Okay, and only you should know it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we're really getting into the intricacies of our digital existence. I'd like to kind of explore just it's not contradiction, but the landscape of our digital existence. It presents both as an opportunity and vulnerability. So let's ask Mon and Dina later. I think within the context of what we want you do, Mon, no, as e-learning coordinator, you've been responsible for the upkeep of our learning management system. Navigating that point of opportunity and at the same time vulnerability.
Perhaps one thing that we should realize, that especially for us, we're talking about data here and the sharing of information. One thing that what's very important, what I've learned before when I was data privacy coordinator for the high school, is that the data that you cannot protect is that you should not collect that data that you cannot protect. So you have to really make sure that before you gather information, you make sure that those are the things that you only need. And as for, especially for your accounts, Google Workspace accounts, all those information that you are going to share maybe inside among your classmates, for your teachers, make sure that these information are something that may not be too private for you, but not at the same time, it can be also, sometimes I realize that if you don't understand what attorney mentioned earlier about the PIP and the PIC, sometimes it tends to bring some self-constraint also of the sharing of information. So rather than you're sharing information or useful information for the other person to process it, but because you don't understand the difference between the PIP or the PIC, you would usually be very restrictive on that information, which may not be that helpful as well. So better remember what you've learned earlier from the discussion earlier of what the PIP and the PIC is all about, because that's how we can also, because knowledge is important, data is important, and there are uses for information that are used for good, and there are information that are used for bad. So you make sure you know the difference.
Thank you, Mon. I think I'd like the fact that when you listen to what Mon is saying, bottom line is, as we relate to digital technology, we kind of go to that point where we make informed decisions, whether to share, you know what, to share, etc. So, wag kayong magmamahal nang hindi nyo kayang protektahan ang inyong mahal. So, no, that leads us to Miss Dina. Dina is the Registered Admissions Officer. She's really familiar about CIA, no? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So I'll give the floor to Dina and just share her insights.
Okay. So as Sir Racho mentioned, I'm very much concerned about CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of all the documents under our care. As admissions and registrar, we're the very first one to collect the information of students when you apply at Miriam College. And then even at the time of graduation, we will be the one to release your documents. Of course, under our care, this will be in perpetuity. So that means that we should be the ones to be really protected in terms of cybersecurity, and data privacy should be in place. So my question is, during the pandemic, we learned so much about online processing, and a lot of schools engage in what you call a workaround process because nothing is in place during that time. So during that time, we exchange scholastic records via email, but we are very much aware of the data privacy exposure of such process. And even up to this time, there are some schools who would like to continue or to retain that process. How can we guard ourselves from potential threats? Like, I am very much interested to know about encryption. And because encryption is something that is already being used by insurance agencies, by banks, and I think that it's about time that we also engage our school in that. What do you think?
Okay. First, in terms of encryption, as we know, the goal is to make the data not readable to others unless you decrypt. Okay. Now there are technologies for encryption. We have data at rest, so meaning encrypted while here on the local, and then as to also when it reaches the destination, and also encrypted communication. These are two different technologies. Now, usually the typical ones are the encryption on the network. Okay. Now, for email, we do have several technologies. I won't mention our brand, but there are technologies by which we can secure communication between MTAs, or mail transfer agent, we call it. So that can ensure that the communication is always encrypted. It cannot be easily MITM, or man in the middle. Okay, that's one. Plus many other, in terms of email, many other securities. We have BATB, or bounce address tag validation, DKIM, as many technical, just to ensure confidentiality and integrity of the data itself. Now, if we are looking for communication by which we will transfer data by submission on a website, now if we are using public sites like Google, the only chance that it could be compromised is that first, if Google is compromised, if your account is compromised. Okay. Now, regarding file encryption, there are free tools as well. There are paid, for example, just for PDF, which are the typical documents. There are also applications that are made just for PDFs. Okay, and there are free tools as well. So yeah, we can explore all those. Does this free tool meet our needs? If not, then we can go for the commercial one. Okay. Now, for many security vendors, what they do offer is the security between network communication between machines and communication between servers and from end user to another. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question, if I may. There are some schools who send us a repository where we can submit the document. That one is legitimate, right?
If it is a repository controlled by, you mean public, like Gmail, or owned by schools?
It's a link where we can upload the document.
Oh, okay. If it is typically a public, for example, a file transfer site, if it is a reputable site, okay, then it might be okay, like Dropbox, okay, Google Drive. So the only chance, again, is that if the account has been compromised or the website itself, which is highly unlikely, like Microsoft being compromised, something like that. So it may still be trusted. Now, the only thing we need is to secure, once we fetch the data from this site going here, and if by chance, for example, the site has been compromised or the another site opens in some cases, if the site is compromised or the user gave you a different link mimicking it, that we do have an endpoint security as well, just in case we downloaded something else aside from the intended files. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we need to close the segment, but just quickly, I'd like to ask the discussants for a short takeaway from the conversation this morning. So we begin with, again, what's her name?
It's you may call me Ayepo.
Okay.
So actually this has been this talk was a supplemental informative talk for me, because just yesterday we had also a cybersecurity, and yeah, since it's a celebration for Cybersecurity Month, and hearing both perspectives really from an expert in IT sector and from a legal perspective, which I'm really interested, given that I would also want to explore the legal field someday. This was very enlightening, and very much appreciated the practical tips even from both speakers, because we as students, we're considered as digital natives, but we're also very confused with the vast terminologies, acronyms that we get to be introduced with every cybersecurity talk. So repeatedly hearing them and being explained thoroughly and comprehensively by both speakers makes us more familiar that maybe when we encounter again these websites, these accounts or applications, we get to remember every tips given and every reminders from both of them, or even actions that we may have accountability for, given that we are users of internet and the cyberspace. So once again, very thankful for your presence po and for gracing us today with your knowledge and expertise.
Thank you, Miss Dina.
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity to learn something. Although we have, the school continuously organizes something like this every so often, I really appreciate that we get to go back to what data privacy is all about, what cybersecurity is all about. I think it's just a reminder that these are very important matters, and it is something that we should take seriously. Every day, technology is very fast. Every day, we learn something new. We're blown away by technology. So I think that we should be responsible users of technology. I think that even before we engage in it, we should know our rights and our responsibilities as well. That's all.
Thank you, Dina. Let's hear it from Mon.
Okay. I'd like to give some of my tips, personal tips for especially to our audience who are mostly students here, and also the adults, the teachers. Basically, when you read something, you have to be very careful and you have to be very aware of what you're reading, right? Because most of us, especially you who we call the digital natives, are really used to social media, right? Social media. And when we use our phones, basically, we tend to change our behavior when it comes to reading compared to a book, right? Because when you're reading a book, you try to read it line per line. Nowadays, we are used to scrolling our screens. We tend to scan and not really read. And I hope you know the difference between scanning and reading. No? So when you read, talaga, every line. And this is where our vulnerability starts also, right? That as students, we tend to not read between the lines and we tend to believe easily on the things that we just saw. So know if you're reading or scanning. Be always aware. And because of we have laws as mentioned by Attorney Chua and as mentioned by Mr. Edwin, no? So we have tools and as well as to protect ourselves. Eventually, some of you will be working. You have to invest on products that can protect you also and invest on things that you will need, not to piracy, because that is really one of the things that is being used against us. You are being used by these companies because we believe it's free kasi pirated siya, diba? So make sure that eventually, if you have money already, that you earn your money, invest on things, especially your security. Thank you.
Thank you, Teacher Mon. Okay. And yes.
Thank you. Yes. First of all, I just really feel very fortunate for this opportunity because a lot of the time we don't really get to have this kind of talk, this kind of awareness. So being a part of this is really, really helpful for us, especially as we said that our generation today is digital natives. Yun, sabi, like Mr. Mon has said, that we tend to be very careless now that we have that kind of complacency in terms of like, oh, we use social media all the time. We know how to operate this. We know how to do this. But we don't really think about the wariness and the dangers that comes with, the threats in the online sphere. So yeah, especially me, given that I have been hacked before, it really made me realize how important it is to read between the lines. And what Attorney Dane has said, that human error is the weakest link to cybersecurity, will probably really echo with me as days go on. Yeah. So I'm really, really thankful for this opportunity and knowing that there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of technology being in place that helps us be more aware of the threats is really, really helpful. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And probably just to close this segment, just reflecting on the conversation, it's obvious that cybersecurity and data privacy are not just technical challenge, but I suppose it's also a philosophical inquiry into the values of trust, responsibility, and the nature of how we interact with other people. We will continue to navigate the digital world between opportunity and what did I say? Vulnerability, between precaution and progress. But let our engagement with the digital world not guided by fear, but rather by informed decision-making, collaboration, and resilience. So that next time, our oops moments are not nadali na naman, but rather it's a world of learning, an exploration of challenges, and forging meaningful relationships. Muli, maraming salamat sa ating discussants and to our two esteemed speakers. And thank you everyone. May I turn the floor now to our MC. Maraming salamat.
Okay, at this point, Dr. Racho will now award the certificates certificates of appreciation to our speakers. Thank you again for sharing such insightful and engaging discussions with us this morning. We look forward to utilizing our newfound knowledge to protect ourselves and to even contribute to building safer communities and digital spaces. Oops, nadali uli sa collaboration of Miriam College's Information and Communications Technology Office, Human Resources Division, Data Privacy Office, and the Risk Management Office. Thank you for all your efforts that made this event possible. Thank you as well to our vendors, PowerMac, Creative Info Solutions with cooperation of VST for Trend Micro, SLID Net Systems, and Epson Philippines. And of course, thank you to all of you who attended today's Cybersecurity Month celebration. Last one, please be guided that your official attendance at this seminar will be taken from the list of those who have completed the evaluation form. So kindly take some time to answer the form before you exit. The evaluation form, QR codes may be seen near the exits. Thank you. And also flashed on the screen.
Just a quick announcement for the students. There are prizes and games outside. If you after the session, I think Miss Jen will make an announcement for the SD Tech students. Thank you.
SD Tech students, nandito na ba lahat ang 12 and 10? Okay, grade 7. Sige, ganito.